You said by September, we will know what has caused the autism epidemic and we'll be able to eliminate those exposures.
We'll have some of the information to get the most solid information. It will probably take us another 6 months.
Remember when RFK said that he will determine the cause and eliminate the cause of autism by September? Well, it looks like someone made an oopsie. My name is Brittany Page, and I am the lucky guest host today for Jesse Dollemore. He is unfortunately sick. We got many messages yesterday wondering, where is Jesse? And he's sick, unfortunately. So I'm sure he would love it if you would comment below, wish him well. I'm sure that in his absence, he would appreciate your support of the channel in the form of watching me. He wanted to make sure I was working on the channel today to ensure that you got the news that you need. And that's why we are here today talking about RFK. In this recent interview that he gave with Kaitlan Collins, this disastrous interview where he admits that maybe he set a timeline that he can't actually achieve. Well, he doesn't really admit that. He's kind of forced to admit it. We'll get there in a moment, but he's making the rounds promoting this new report that they released, the MAHA report. And I feel uncomfortable even saying that. Very dumb. MAHA report. It's a report that details what he sees as the priorities, the causes of poor health in America. And he talks about things like over-medicating children, screen time, environmental toxins, poor nutrition. And when you search the report, though, you don't see anything about, poverty, lack of access to health care, how important things like what Republicans want to cut in their budget, Medicaid, SNAP, how important those things are for the health of children. You don't see anything about guns in the report either, the leading cause of death for children in America. But we're not here to talk about the propaganda report. We're here to talk about him backtracking, RFK backtracking from his previous claims. He is a lifelong anti-vaccine activist. He's a conspiracy theorist. And like I said, he gave this interview with Kaitlan Collins on CNN where he walked back his bold claims to find the cause of autism by September. And if you don't believe that he actually said that, by the way, we're going to have producer Chris. Everybody loves producer Chris. He's an amazing, amazing guy. He has a clip to refresh all of our memories about what RFK said just a month ago. Check this out.
We are going, at your direction, we are going to know by September. We've launched a massive testing and research effort that's going to involve hundreds of scientists from around the world. By September, we will know what has caused the autism epidemic, and we'll be able to eliminate those exposures.
So we knew this wouldn't be the case. We knew that he wouldn't come out and find the cause of autism by September because that's not how any of this works. I mean, at least unless you're doing direct fraud, which, I'm worried about when it comes to RFK, and we'll get to that in a moment. But the cause of autism is multifactorial. And when you're talking about things like genetic risk factors, how exactly are you going to eliminate genetic risk factors? I mean, it starts getting into eugenics territory quite quickly with these people quite often. He speaks like the scientific community isn't researching the causes, or like they're hiding the causes from everyone. And that kind of goes to him as a conspiracy theorist. But again, he's finally admitting that this timeline that he has proposed was a lie or dishonest or however you might want to characterize it. I'd be interested to know in the comments below. But let's see what he tells Kaitlan Collins as far as what is happening with this September timeline.
The next report that you've said that you'll produce is in September when you want to determine the cause of autism. Do you still plan to know the cause of autism?
The dietary guidelines come out in August, and the second stage of this report also comes out in August.
Okay, so that's in August. But this would be in September when you said that you would be able to determine what the cause of autism is. Is that still the timeline that you are sticking with?
We will have some studies completed by September. And those studies will mainly be replication studies of studies that have already been done. We're also deploying new teams of scientists, 15 groups of scientists. We're going to send those grants out to bid within 3 weeks.
Why would you replicate studies that have been done?
Because the only way you can get good science is through replication. If you don't have replication, you don't know whether other scientists looking at the same data will arrive at the same conclusion. Good science always includes replication. In fact, we're changing the procedures at NIH so that up to 20% of the funding at NIH is for replication. If you don't have replication, you have incentives to cheat. And there's a lot of cheating that goes on in science.
Oh, cheating in science, you say? You mean like Andrew Wakefield, the man who kind of started this anti-vaccine saga, who published research and then had it retracted because of misconduct and dishonesty? You know, we're going to get to another concerning element of this, and that is someone that RFK has put into place at HHS who also has retractions and a lifelong history of anti-vaccine activism. Very concerning stuff. But first, I want to talk about RFK squirming and shifting around in his seat, visibly uncomfortable with having to answer for the fact that he was dishonest, that he's making these bold proclamations with certainty about getting answers for people where it's not possible. And then he's being called to the carpet to say, hey, was that not honest? Were you being dishonest? And he's struggling to answer there. But another part of this is, this discussion illustrates why you need scientists to have these conversations. Kaitlan Collin asks, why would you replicate research? And RFK says it's the only way to have good science. Well, it's not the only way to have good science. It's certainly an important part of research, but there are many important parts of the research process that prevent fraud, that prevent abuse, that help hinder bias from influencing the outcome. My field of study is psychology. There was recently a replication crisis in psychology where many studies that have these profound findings that were really popular in media, that they were not able to be replicated. And it led to kind of this reckoning in the field of what can we do to ensure that our research is sound. And one of the things you can do is like pre-register your study plan, pre-register your methods, pre-register your statistical analyses, your hypotheses in advance so that you can't just collect data, go searching for a statistically significant finding, and then get that published. It's a more methodical way to go through research and a way that avoids bias, avoids you just going out and trying to find a particular outcome. And so when RFK talks about a lot of cheating in science, it's hard to trust him because really he's coming from a place where he's motivated explicitly by his bias, by his anti-vaccine bias. And there's so much proof of that. But one element of this is David Geyer, and I call him the Nepo baby of anti-vaccine activism, given that he's the son of Mark Geyer. And they together have published studies claiming that vaccines cause autism. Well, he's apparently been hand-selected to lead the charge on studying the causes of autism. He's been tasked with studying the connection between vaccines and autism. Of course, it's already been studied. There is no connection between vaccines and autism. David, it should be noted, is not a doctor. He has an undergraduate degree. He was actually, according to the Washington Post, disciplined by Maryland regulators more than a decade ago for practicing medicine without a license. He is listed as a data analyst in the HHS employee directory. And let's just give more background on his work. Quote, since the 2000s, the Geyers published some studies suggesting a link between thimerosal, a mercury-containing preservative in vaccines that drew public concern, and autism. The preservative has largely been excised from childhood vaccines by 2001. The Journal of Science and Engineering Ethics retracted a 2015 paper co-authored by the Geyers that contended public health officials have conflicts of interest in studying whether mercury exposure triggers autism. The journal cited errors and failures to disclose the author's own conflicts of interest, including the Geyers' involvement in a mercury-free drugs coalition. Interesting. In a 2015 interview at a gathering of Autism One, an organization that promotes the discredited link between vaccines and the condition, David Geyer described CDC research on vaccines as compromised. He said the federal government sees its role as increasing vaccine uptake and quashing research that undermines immunization. Does this sound like someone who doesn't have a bias, who isn't going to go digging for a preferred outcome? Does this sound like someone who's willing to be transparent with their planned analysis? I don't think so. I think it sounds like a zealot. I think it sounds like someone who is eager to enter the government and infect us all with their anti-vaccine activism. That's what I think. But just remember how confident RFK was when he said he would find the cause and eliminate the cause of autism by September. Kaitlan Collins really pushes him on this question and really gets him to a place where he's very uncomfortable and unable to speak for himself.
Looking at your April 10th comments when you were inside the cabinet meeting, you said by September we will know what has caused the autism epidemic and we'll be able to eliminate those exposures.
We'll have some of the information. To get the most solid information, it will probably take us another 6 months.
Okay, so parents should not expect to know what causes autism by September anymore.
We'll see. We're going to, as I said, we're going to replicate some of the studies that have already been done that look like sound studies. And we'll know a lot from those, and then we'll know a lot more afterward.
But not the definitive answer by September, just to be clear, because it matters.
It depends what those replicable studies show.
Okay, and then what do you expect to happen 6 months after that? You mentioned something else
I expect
in 6
we
months.
will know the answers of the etiology of autism.
Okay, so that timeline is moving from September to 6 months
As
after
I said,
September.
we're going to begin to have a lot of information by September. We're not going to stop the studies in September. We're going to be definitive, and the more definitive you are, the more it drives public policy.
Okay, so that would put us at what, March next year? You say you'll know the cause of it?
As I said, it's about 6 months after September. A lot of these studies will begin coming back.
Oh boy. Anyone else extremely uncomfortable watching that, or just me? This is why you don't give explicit timelines for finding causes and having solutions, because it's not how any of this works. Unless, of course, you have predetermined what the cause is and you're eager to come out and tell the public what that is. And that's, again, something I'm worried about. We need to remember that RFK is under pressure here, and that's why he's uncomfortable. That's why he's backtracking. That's why he's forced to give answers that clarify that he was not correct, that he was not accurate in the timeline that he gave. This is the pressure. This is the accountability that people like RFK need. And, sometimes I hear people say, I agree with RFK on this or that. I don't agree with him about everything. I agree on this or that. I think our food should be better. The thing is, RFK is fundamentally a conspiracy theorist. He believes the HPV vaccine, the life-saving HPV vaccine, causes cancer. He has had multiple opportunities in response to the measles outbreak to tell people directly to get vaccinated, and he doesn't. He is dangerous. So whether or not you sometimes agree with him or not, he's fundamentally dangerous. And actually, recently, RFK said you shouldn't take medical advice from him. Kaitlan Collins asked him about that too.
You also said something recently when you were on Capitol Hill and you were being asked about vaccines and whether or not you would recommend them for people out in the United States. And you said that people should not take medical advice from you. You are the HHS secretary, though, and your job is to create guidance and to talk about vaccines and medical testing. Why should people not take medical advice from you?
Well, they probably shouldn't take medical advice from any HHS secretary. Very few of the HHS secretaries historically, I think maybe 10 or 20%, 15% have been doctors. People were asking me, I was responding to a question about my personal health choices. And I said, that's not relevant because people should not make their decisions based upon my personal health choices. We have an infrastructure. We have an advisory committee on immunization practices that makes recommendations. It's a group of scientists that looks at reams of data, and that's where our recommendations come from, not from an individual.
But you're leading
it's
all
time,
of those agencies.
One of the big mistakes that you and many other of your media colleagues made during COVID is to try to convince the American people that they should trust the experts. Trusting the experts is not a feature of science. It's not a feature of democracy. It's a feature of religion and totalitarianism. What we should do is trust the science. And we are going to do the science, and the science is going to be replicable, and it's going to be gold standard so that parents can make their own choices about what is best for their family and their health.
How exactly is RFK going to do gold standard science with someone like David Geyer at the helm? A zealot, someone who was disciplined for practicing medicine without a license when he wasn't even a doctor. He didn't have a license. I mean, this is dangerous. These are zealots. How is it gold standard to put zealots in place? You know, the conversation about trusting experts, all that means is humility, admitting the limits of our knowledge, okay? I have master's level scientific training. I've taken research design classes. I designed my own study, collected data, did the research analysis for my thesis. And if you were to put a vaccine research paper in front of me, I would have no clue what is going on there because that's not my area. I know nothing about that. I have to defer to people who know more than me. Now, this is where it gets a little complicated because there are doctors who have sold out, who, for whether it's fame or money, sell out and start, hawking supplements or whatever. I mean, I'm thinking of Dr. Oz, Dr. Drew. I'm sure you guys are thinking of doctor examples right now. So I think it's more important to look for qualities in people who can admit that things aren't black and white, that there is a lack of certainty sometimes, that we don't always have the answers. And this is something that frustrated the public during the pandemic because it's a human need to search out certainty, to look for certainty, to have people tell us, I know exactly what's going on and here's the solution, especially when things are scary, especially when you're facing a diagnosis that you may be confused about or fearful of. You're going to want that certainty more. But the thing is, we don't always have that. And so it's important to kind of check that impulse, our desire for certainty, because people like RFK take advantage of it. So there's qualities in people, acknowledging the limit of your knowledge, acknowledging that there are people who know more than you, seeking out experts, trying to be a lifelong learner, seek out more information. So it is dangerous in so many ways what RFK is doing. And I hope you're all paying attention to it. I hope you're warning people in your lives about that danger. And if they don't know about the danger, you can share this video with them. Again, my name is Brittany Page. I host the Page Perspective right here on YouTube. I would love for you to go over there and check me out, subscribe to my channel. And Jesse would, of course, love to know what you think about this story. So you can give him a call and leave a fewer than 3-minute voicemail at 714-576-4054, or you can send him an email to daily@dollemore.com. He would love to know what kind of grade you're giving me for my guest hosting today. Like an A+, solid A, A-. Those seem like the only options, I think. So let him know. And you can also support him here on the channel by becoming a channel member for as little as $1.99 a month by clicking the join button below or by going to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. And Jesse does hard work here. I don't know if you know that. I have been recording these videos. My voice is starting to get hoarse. I'm not used to talking for this long by myself at this desk. He does really hard work, and I know so many of you value it because you wondered where he was. He's sick. Hopefully he will get better soon and be back with you all. In the meantime, be genuine and take care of one another.